this is Kate Gunning, and you're watching the CMO show with Kate Gunning. And we're live today in Austin, Texas with my favorite new friend, Michael Robin. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Kate.
How you doing?
Pretty great today.
Yeah?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
glad to hear it. I love to hear you're having a great day. Michael, can you tell me what your role is?
Well, I am the new CMO of the CMO show. We started this journey together, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I was appointed the role of CMO.
So exciting to be a CMO hosting a CMO show and to have my very own CMO of the CMO show live with me on set today.
Right.
It's very exciting. I'm really grateful we get to build this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're in Austin, Texas. You live in Austin, Texas. And I want to know what you're most excited about in terms of this new show, your new endeavor, being the CMO on the CMO show.
Yeah, I know. It's something I've never done before. So I've never been in charge of promoting. And sorry if the producer is listening and this is his first time hearing this, but promoting media at large like this. So my role is primarily in promoting and getting the noise out there and bringing people to the front door of the CMO show. But particularly and personally, it's exciting that I get to bring and invite CMOs that I've watched over the span of my career to come have conversations like the one that we're about to have and learn from them and learn from the good, the bad, and the ugly of their journeys. It just excites me.
I think it's really exciting too. And I think it's fun that we get to invite people here, have conversations about what makes CMOs really special. And sometimes that means we'll get into conversation about things that have nothing to do with being on the job, but really getting to the core of who the CMO is, what makes them who they are, kind of highlighting the multi-dimensions of the person, the individual, what makes them creative, what makes them introspective. I think that's really exciting. So
yeah, totally.
I'm really pumped to have you here with me. Why don't we start by having you share with me and our listeners, hi listeners, hope you're enjoying it so far, what your superpower is, your CMO superpower.
Yeah, I have to just sell it to one.
You do. It's the trick. It's the challenge.
I know. This has been a really interesting question, and I feel like I've answered it a lot over the past couple weeks as I've been identifying my next journey in my career. Mm-hmm. But I think my superpower is growth.
Yes.
Yes. So my ability to take something wherever an organization is at, startup, Series A, or post funding, and look at the pipeline and see what the CEO or CRO, where they want to go, and build that pipeline further in the ways that they're asking the marketing department to do. Growth. That's
a good one. And tell me how you go about doing that, or why you think that's your superpower. Like, how did you arrive at that as a thing you have a knack for?
I took a big gulp when you were like, and how do you do that exactly?
Do you take a growth pill and then step into the office?
Yeah.
How exactly does it work? Right? Because everybody thinks about that differently, I think. But what's your
It comes in an orange and white bottle once a month. HEB calls and they're like, your prescription is ready.
You have a growth subscription pill. Perfect.
Yes. I think for me, foundationally, it comes from my drive to make sure that the money is in the door, mm-hmm. and rooted, honestly. And it's funny, you're like, we might be talking about things that have nothing to do with the job. Like, yeah, absolutely. So I was raised from super humble beginnings, and there were times where we were scraping by, paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. Remember my mom going and paying for groceries with food stamps and really just having tough times. So when I was working in my first startup, and I was collaborating with the COO, trying to understand how he needed the marketing department, the one-person marketing department, to meet the needs of the organization, and understanding there was a fine delta between closing sales and cutting paychecks. That freaked me out. So I invited myself into that collaboration and growth with him, and started charting when the sales closed, when the customers paid, and started shortening that cycle and building up the cash reserves for that organization, and took that grit with me wherever I went, irregardless of my involvement in the revenue office, so to speak. So my charge at other organizations weren't necessarily make sure we have money in the bank to cash the checks, but it was to keep closing and keep bringing awareness out to, let's say, enterprise names, or other small, medium, large businesses, or financial institutions, so that we can continue to grow and survive.
That's amazing. And I do think it's really special that you're connecting how you grew up to how you're making money now, today, right? Your superpower, your talent. And I think that that's something that we don't all really talk about enough.
Right.
And I think if we did, which is part of the point of this show, then we could all be a lot more helpful to one another, because there's reasons why we have the talents that we do.
Sure.
And it's always based on our perspectives and experiences. And so what I love about this is that's not something that I would learn about you if I read your LinkedIn profile, for example. And it's not something that would be on your resume, but it's something that makes you special, that is core to who you are, because it's core to how you grew up into this world. And so I think that's really powerful. So tell me then, on the other side, you're really awesome at growth. What do you totally suck at? Because we all have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
I, for one, have a lot of weaknesses. I'll just be the first to admit.
Yeah, your self-awareness inspires me.
Oh, thank you.
It does. I'm serious. I don't say that like with any, I know it sounds snarky, like, oh, I'm so glad for you. It's like, I'm really like, it's very inspiring to see people that are self-aware. Like, we all have a lot of things to work on, but you're so honest.
Oh, thank you.
I
try.
I totally suck at executive buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is something I'm working on, and it's the ability to take the confidence I have when I'm talking with my team, and then turn around and exude that same level or higher with the executive team, and build the story and the buy-in. It's almost like I walk into that room and I see everyone there, and I'm like, I don't belong here. So I'm just trying to like sell them a pair of sandals, and they're all wearing like super fancy shoes. I'm not a shoe wearer, so I'm like, you're all wearing Louis Vuittons, and I'm just here with like some Old Navy flip-flops, and you don't need them, so I'm out the door. So yeah, it's just that executive buy-in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough.
And navigating that, let's talk about how you've navigated that. What do you do when you find yourself in a situation where you need to get buy-in in order to move something forward?
Yeah. I've implemented another superpower of mine, which is telling the story through data, and backing up what I'm unable to say with just common words, with the data to back up the results, and bringing in other executive sponsors who can support me and back me up. I know that can't go on forever, especially as an aspiring CMO of a larger organization. I'll need to stand out on my own. So it's something I'm building for myself, like a program for me, like a get help program. Get yourself some help, girl.
Get yourself some help, girl. Well, it seems like the first step in all of that is awareness, right?
Yeah.
Having a level of self-awareness around where we can improve and how we can get better in life, personally, professionally, all the ways. And I do think too that as the CMO role expands, we're going to have to encourage one another in the CMO world and the founder CEO world too, to be honest about those kinds of things, right? Like I was reading a diagram the other day and it was talking about all the roles that were falling underneath the CMO like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 20 more things underneath it now.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. It's also like, okay, well, surely not all of us have sort of become robotic super women and men. So super fraus. So it's important that we're kind of like using it as an opportunity to evaluate, okay, what part in this pie am I really good at? And how can I put people around me who can help to soften the edges where I might be less strong or smooth, right? So I think it's important that we can have these discussions. And again, another inspiration for the CMO show is highlighting the dimensions of ourselves that make us really unique and special, and where those come from, and then also where we might need a little love from others. So that's great. I appreciate you sharing. Tell me what your biggest marketing win has been. Or what you'd like a win to be. Maybe we can think aspirationally too.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a fair pivot. This one gives me pause because I'd like to think they were all wins. I have a 16-year-old son, and he's mentally older than me sometimes. So he shared with me the other day, because I'm learning to play chess. And he's like, if you're not winning, you're learning. I'm like, isn't that a win too? He's like, that's the point. Jeez.
Thank you.
Thank you, son. But I think it was a time when I was working at the agency where I started out as marketing manager, and then 7 years later, I was president, and we sold the organization. And during that time, we had built an application for, it was a cashback app called Dosh. And we worked with them for the better part of a year. They came in our office weekly. We did go-to-market sessions, UX UI sessions, dev sprints, everything we could to build them, the best MVP that we could. And they were backed by PayPal. So we took this endeavor quite seriously. And they ended up, after they launched, acquiring a pretty big chunk of our development team, which is part of the contract, and opening an office in downtown Austin. And after I left the agency, after we sold, each of the owners also got a percentage of the company, just not really thinking it would ever end up being anything. And so in 2020, February 2020, I got a call from Ryan Wersch, who's the CEO of Dosh, and he's like, congratulations. I'm like, what? He's like, you're an owner of Dosh, and we just sold to Cardlytics, and they had sold for $44 million. Wow. And so part of that went to Rock Sauce and to myself. But the reason why it's a marketing win is not because I was part of the marketing campaign that closed Dosh. I was part of the marketing campaign that closed one of Ryan's companies, 2 companies before he started Dosh. So he created a software with us. He sold that company, and then he created another software with us, and he sold that company. And then he trusted us so much that he moved his entire family into Austin and created Dosh with us. So it wasn't just about what kind of Google ad or Facebook campaign or what our form looked like, our lead gen, whatever it was that drew him in the first time. It was that we had built a compelling life cycle marketing, a robust project management system, and a come back to us because you trust us so much to build, that it had really enhanced a long-term relationship, that he just found a winner of a product. So that, I would say, is a marketing win. It's a long tail win. The first project closed in 2014, but it paid off.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Fox?
Yeah. Fox.
So you just taught me a piece of wisdom via your son about learning is winning.
Mm-hmm.
And your son has a really cool name. Is that the same son?
No.
What's that son's name?
So my oldest son's name is Andon.
Andon.
So Andon's dad lived in Sweden for a couple of years before we met. And Andon means spirited.
Wow.
And that's him. Like totally him. My youngest name is Fox. Mm-hmm. And yes, my marketing brain was on when I named him because I felt like he could be anything, the good or bad. This show is going to be like not rated or TVMA. I'm sure we can cuss on this show, so I can say anything. Hopefully,
explicit.
Yeah, he could be a adult movie star or a president, right? He could be a con artist or the Wolf of Wall Street. So
yes,
he could
the Fox of Wall Street.
He could be anything.
Yes.
But he is one thing. He's wild.
Yeah.
He's my wild child, and he likes being out in the dirt. And he's very much the embodiment of like what I would say is masculine energy. He just wants to like be rough, just like rams into your body, just gets rough and tumble. That's just and so we have this token here. It's an origami or a geometric fox. Little tchotchkes will pop up here and there to remind us of our stuff during the CMO show.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, my son is Tillman, and he wants to have his own podcast. So for his birthday, I got him all the podcaster equipment.
Okay.
And it's going to be either Tilly Fun World or Tilly Gaming. We're not exactly sure yet, but we're working on the branding now.
Yes. It's very important.
So when he saw the CMO show branding, he was like, "Oh, Mom, that's very good. But I'd like mine to be green, but also space." I was like, "Okay, we can do that." So for his Christmas present, we're designing his podcast.
That's beautiful.
Logo.
It's a gift that is not material.
Yeah. I like creation gifts.
Awesome.
Right? Things that make you think about like imagination, creating the world you want to create, that kind of deal. So so we're going to have really fun Easter eggs on our CMO show shelf. And Michael Robin, our guest today, has just highlighted hers, the fox. So maybe that's something for our listeners to be thinking about. What Easter eggs would you like to see pop up here and why? And would you like to send us one and share the story? And or when you're a guest, maybe bring one along and then we can talk about it. Because there's lots of things that shape who we are. So thanks for sharing that too. I want to know what trait you think every single CMO should have, regardless of what their strength is, their weakness. Like, what's one you think just all of us should have?
This is an overused word, but pre-show, Kate was sharing with us that she was a ballerina. So I imagine that your ability to pivot physically came in hand, right? But I think as a CMO, our ability to pivot and be resilient is absolutely necessary because things can change like at the turn of a hat. The entire country can shut down or your industry can hockey stick or, you know, be doomed. And the more and more I research about the role of the CMO, the ups and downs, I see that for better or worse, the most successful CMOs are the ones that are able to withstand the storms, right? So wartime and peacetime CMOs.
Yeah, that's good. Wartime and peacetime.
Yep.
I do agree with you. I think flexibility is imperative.
Yeah.
Adaptability and just trying to make sure that you're fluid, like be water.
Yeah.
I have that poster in my house. And it's a really good reminder. I'm not great at it always, but I do at least try.
Yeah. Be water.
We gotta help each other with that. Okay, so speaking of qualities every one of us should have. I think a lot of us have learned to have this flexible, adaptable quality, sometimes not because we've chosen it, but because CMO turnover is extremely high, especially in recent years. So we know that is the case. Why do you think that is? What's your perspective on that point?
I have a
Michael
personal
Robin.
opinion, but I also have a researched opinion.
Okay, share both if you want to.
This is part of a journey I'm taking right now for an aspirational marketing win. But my personal feeling actually is backed up by Seth Godin.
Yeah.
Is that how you say his last name?
Hi,
Godin?
Seth.
Yeah.
I really think you're great.
We should have you on the show.
Come join us. That'd be super fun.
He wrote this article about CEOs hiring chief hype officers and not CMOs.
I remember that article. It was great.
All right. And I think I was sharing the article with the group at like the inception of this show. So that's my gut feeling. And also, you know, the majority of the C-suite, they want to see results now. Mm-hmm. And I think about it, like, I know we're all tired of like the iceberg analogy, but you know, they only see what's on top. They see like what you post on social media and maybe some emails and the webinars and your presence at events, but they don't see everything else underneath. And it's those 20 odd roles that are added to the CMO suite. Like, oh, you want some hyper personalization? Well, I've been trying to get that connected with the IT team who are like blocking me, you know, day after day because we have this stupid security protocol, but I know you want it and you want it now, but it's not a microwave button. It just can't happen like that. Right. And Google. Anyway, don't get me started. So that's the personal opinion. The researched opinion is more or less that it really comes down to oftentimes CMOs do come in, they're brought in to do something that they are really good at, let's say growth. Mm-hmm. And then the organization is at a point where they need a sustaining CMO. Yep. And that CMO is like, okay, I've done all I can do here, ready and restless to make another move. And the organization is like, I need a stayer, not a grower. And it's a happy ending for both.
Absolutely.
So there's the good and the bad. Like, obviously you're going to hear all the bad of it on the top, you know, the PR way of things. Like the Yelp review is going to say all the yogurt was terrible, but really the yogurt was really good at that place.
Yes.
But only the people who had a bad time are gonna publish the reviews.
I think let's normalize the fact that CMOs might turn over. Like, who cares, honestly? That's part of the reason I started Crush, my advisory firm, and why I want to make a fund of the brands that I'm working on, because I think it's really fun to partner with founders, help them figure out their strategy, their plan, get them situated, and then either help them execute or get them prepared to and dip out. And I had a little bit of anxiety about the fact that I was at Cart for 10 months. And then I was like, you know what? No, fuck it. It was 10 really solid months and it felt like 10 years. And we bought 10 companies and raised $400 million and.
Yeah.
Like, who cares if it was 10 power-packed months or years?
Yeah.
It's all good. And let's just start feeling good about that, right? Yeah. And tenures are amazing too, right? Like Linda Boff, I think... Linda, how long have you been at GE? Forever, a long time. I've watched your career forever and have had some friends work for you and have thought like, wow, how is she so interesting in that role for that long? Like, it's so impressive. It's so impressive.
Yeah.
Both are great.
Right.
You know?
And for some companies, a lot of companies, they cannot grow forever, right? There's the unicorn and there's the camel, and GE is a camel.
Yes.
And so Linda is likely one that's a stayer, right?
Yes.
And so she remains consistent and pivots the way the organization needs her to, but isn't one that's going to wildly 10x the organization, because GE is not that type of org.
That's right.
Right. But Cart, yes. Yeah. Right. Mindbridge, the company I was at, definitely on a high growth trajectory. Cool. Yeah. But I learned so much while I was there. And in the first 6 months, we did a complete rebrand. And we did come back from being dormant at live events. Like, I mean, that's huge.
Yes, super huge.
Yeah, that was super huge for me to experiment and see what that felt like and see the results. So
that's great.
Yep.
When I was working at JP Morgan and left and went to IEX, that's the first time I started thinking about brands as stocks, like value stocks, which need stayers.
Yeah.
And growth stocks, which need growth hackers, sprinters, right? Yeah. Like big dreamers. And I was like, this is actually really interesting. Like there's a reason why both of those kinds of stocks are in portfolios.
Yeah. And
there's a reason why we have both of those kinds of companies. There's the Russell 1000, the S&P 500. Here we all are, right? But like it's powerful when you start to unpack that and then like not feel so bad that CMO turnover has been high. Like that's felt super shitty for a lot of people, right? Like we've had a lot of people in our community lose their jobs, get shuffled around. Like that can feel bad. But I think highlighting this is really beautiful because shouldn't feel bad. We should be proud of whether we're a stayer or a sprinter.
Yep.
And both are needed. And that's great. So whether you're a stayer or a sprinter, we want to talk to you. So send us a note.
Yep.
Let us know. And we'd
if
love
you have
to
an opinion about it.
Yeah.
We all need someone to spar with.
That's right.
Yep.
That's absolutely right. Share your opinion. Where should people share that? Should they email us?
Yes.
Yes. CMO of the CMO show. Where would you like for people to send emails?
I'm waiting for someone to tell me.
How about we can start with Kate at thecmoshow.com.
Yeah.
Because we have that email address.
That is.
Okay, perfect.
So Kate at CMOshow.com.
So if you have a perspective on what we're talking about right now, which is CMO turnover, the fact that it's high, leaning into that, normalizing that, because we have companies that are big value stocks that need stayers. Michael Robbins calling them stayers, people who stick around for a decade and they evolve over time. And then we've got companies that are becoming unicorns. They're growing really rapidly. They need sprinters. Send us your perspective on that and why you think that the turnover is so high. Do you think it's a good thing, bad thing? Do you think it feels shitty or it feels like an opportunity? We want to know. How do you decide whether or not you should use outside help or inside help? This is another thing that's like kind of can be tricky to figure out.
Yeah, so I recently did a talk with the CMO of JLL where we were talking about trends and predictions for 2023.
Oh, that's interesting.
And we talked about agencies, bringing them in to your marketing team or just distributing the work in-house. And we had a bit of a debate because his prediction was more focused on the enterprise, like the larger model. We're going to be hiring more agencies. And I felt that was true in an enterprise space because it's scalable.
Yeah.
So that's really how I think about if I'm going to bring in an agency or outside help or consulting, how is this going to impact my organization? Is it going to be scalable? Is it going to be short-term, long-term? How long is long-term? Is it a specialized role? Or will I really need this resource close and in-house? And on the flip side, my point of view really came from smaller businesses where I saw a lot of CEOs, CFOs, COOs cutting budgets, even agencies off, and just distributing roles and responsibilities across entire marketing teams and just saying, this is what you have to work with, figure it out. And so everyone had to do everything from the inside. But economics aside, let's say money wasn't an object. If I'm looking at bringing someone inside versus outside, you have to protect the company's assets. So more than likely, if it's a close client project dealing with data, and you have to go through IT to onboard an agency, I mean, that's an a nightmare. Like we mentioned before, I'm going to keep that in-house. I'm going to hire a contractor or someone to work for me full time. But everything else, I really feel that having an agency is really useful, and a consultant. Going outside helps you look at the project from a completely different perspective. And sometimes we, even as marketers, we are too close to the challenge, of the problem statement. We're too close to the brand. Like, oh, but no, I really like Gotham has always been our font and we cannot change it. No, it's always been our font. It's like, well, let's try this instead.
Yes.
Like, how does that look? That could get a brand designer fired in-house, but proposed by an agency is not a huge deal and gives perspective.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Michael, Robin, we have one question more. I can't wait to know your answer, given that we've curated this awesome stack of books here on set from our lovely producer, Elijah. Can you tell our listeners what your favorite marketing book is?
Yes. So my favorite marketing book is always going to be the last marketing book I read.
Oh, okay. That's good. You're on a roll.
Yes. So I last read Get to Aha by Andy Cunningham.
It's a great one.
Right. And I'd never heard of it before. I'm like, where have I been?
Where has this been?
Under a rug. This aligns with my philosophy on everything. But it was recommended to me by someone I was interviewing with, and I ate it up in like 2 days. And if you haven't read it, do, or Audible it. Don't Blinkist it. Like, just don't shortcut it. Andy is super smart, super brilliant. She was one of the many that helped Steve Jobs promote any of the products beyond just, this is a iPhone. Like, no, it's 1 million things in your pocket.
Yes.
Like, it's, what is it beyond the tool that it is? What is it beyond the product that it obviously is? So getting to the positioning and value statement very quickly and succinctly, amazing. Just like totally opened my brain again and got me really inspired on some of the projects I'm working on. So,
I think that's great.
Yeah, it's always going to be that. Yeah, that last book I read. So,
well, that's the kind of book I honestly think it's helpful to read like twice a year.
Yeah.
So, in that instance, it could be the last book that you read a couple times. Yeah. You know,
completely.
It is a great one. We'll link it in the show notes.
Totally.
So that everybody can see it. But yes, it's a great one. Everyone should read it at least once.
Yeah. And obviously it's going to be like an affiliate link because we're marketers.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Our producers are like, no, we're not doing that. But
we're doing it.
Yeah, we're marketers.
We're doing it.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn the table on you, Kate, and just ask you one question before we wrap up the show. Why marketing?
That's such a great question. So I am a gut person, and I'm trying to think if there's like a time in my life when I haven't made a very large choice based on my gut, and I don't think that there is. I thought I was going to be an architect. I applied to Clemson's architecture school, University of Florida's architecture school, got into both programs. Grew up in loving real estate. My dad's a developer. And I also applied for communications at Florida State, where I ended up going. And I walked into advertising class first day of my sophomore year. And the energy in the room was so palpable. It was phenomenal. There was music playing. There were people up and standing around and talking and engaging. There were ads playing on the screen, like looping in front of the class. And I was like, why would I be an architect? That sounds so boring. Like sitting behind a desk, like sketching all the time by myself. Like, God, that sounds horrible. Sorry, Chris, I just pounded the paper. Chris, our producer, our videographer, does not like it when we make noises with pens and paper. So it was just a feeling. I was like, okay, I love creativity. I love people. I love culture. Like looking at what's happening in culture. I think it's fascinating, like studying patterns and picking up on signs and signals and using those to sort of predict where a brand and a customer might come together as a little match.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was that feeling, that like hit of energy that I got walking into advertising class my sophomore year. I went home that night. I changed my application because it was due the next day. Applied to advertising, got in, interned at McCann in New York when I was in college. And I was like, dude, I love this. I was actually walking in Times Square when I got the email saying I'd gotten into advertising school. So I was like,
oh my gosh,
this is a synchronicity. This is a synchronicity.
This is
I'm
my
meant
moment.
to do this for real.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I just always knew. And now I'm really grateful to have found a career that I love, a passion that I can do and like, make an income. And so now I love, I renovated a house in Woodstock. I love working with architects. I love interior design. So I I still get to dabble.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really just the best career. I feel so grateful that I get to think creatively all the time and meet people who are inspired by their business idea and help them bring it to life. It's just like the best job ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a good journey.
It's been really fun.
Cool.
Lots of sleepless nights, but that's the way we like it.
Yeah.
When necessary.
When necessary.
When necessary.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
We'll lose sleep for a fun project.
That should be my LinkedIn header.
Yeah.
Changing it right after this. Yeah.
Great. So
Awesome.
grateful. Yeah. Thanks for asking. It's a great question. I am honored to be with you today. I'm so glad that we get to do this together, like I said before. And it's so fun to be at this point in our careers and to be able to sit down with people who are just doing the same thing, trucking along as CMOs. And I am so glad that we get to have this forum to celebrate them, celebrate each other, highlight each other. It is, and it will continue to be really fun. So Thank you for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm excited for what's next.
Yeah. That's right. So if you are interested in being on the show or part of the show,
how do people reach you in order to say that they're interested in being on the show?
So if you are interested in being on the show or have a recommendation for a CMO you'd like to see on the show, you can reach me at michaelrobin@teamcmo.com or kate@cmoshow.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks to everyone for listening as well. We're so grateful to have you. And like Michael said, we'd love to hear from you. So shoot us a note if you have a perspective about the show, if you've got an idea for a guest, or if you've got something that you'd like to share that you think everyone should hear about too. We want to hear it. Thanks for being with us.